Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all an update to my TG Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for January 2023. Wanted to update the TG deck. We've gotten support from it. It's been a while. I think the last support we got for the TG deck was in the Ghost from the Past set, and even that set was just a Synchro monster, being a combination between Shooting Star Dragon and the TG Blade Blaster. But still, I love updating this deck. It's a really awesome Synchro deck, for those of you that don't know, that focuses on Excel Synchro from Bruno in the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D series, and just all the changes that I make to the deck here and there with each play and practice of it all together. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. For the TG monsters, we're running 3 copies of TG Screw Serpent. If this card is normal or special summon, you can target one level 4 or lower TG monster in your graveyard, except for Screw Serpent, and special summon that monster, but its effects are negated. You can banish this card from your graveyard to target one TG monster you control, increase or reduce its level by 1 until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect of TG Screw Serpent once per turn. So this could be your setup card to go into your many different level 5 synchro monsters that we have for the TG deck, either being TG Star Guardian, Wonder Magician, or even Hyper Librarian, all providing the initial setup needed to go into some of your bigger monsters like your TG Blade Blaster. And then the banish option to reduce the level of a monster could be needed just for meeting the requirements for that specific level of that TG monster. I also run 3 copies of TG Booster Raptor. If you control a TG monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Booster Raptor once per turn this way, and once per turn during the end phase. If this card on the field was sent because it was destroyed on the field and sent to there this turn, you can add 1 TG monster from your deck to your hand, except for Booster Raptor. So good amount of different TG monsters have this search option when they're destroyed at the end of the turn. So having a Dinosaur level 1 TG monster also gives us room for us to run cards like Miscellaneousaurus, and also search cards like Fossil Dig, just to thin out the deck and add some of these appropriate monsters from our deck to our hand. I also run 3 copies of TG Tank Grub. If this card you control is used as synchro material for a TG monster, you can treat it as a non-tuner. And if it's sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can special summon 1 TG token onto the field as a level 1 Machine Earth attribute monster. And you can use this effect of Tank Grub once per turn. So your Screw Serpent is also a tuner monster, so to have it work together with Tank Grub can just give you the option of making your Tank Grub a non-tuner to have both of these monsters needed for your synchro play you want to do. Otherwise, you could use your other level 1 monster, which is your TG Drillfish, running 3 copies of this card as well. With this card, you can attack directly. You can only use each of the following effects of Drillfish once per turn. If all monsters you control are TG monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. And when a TG monster you control inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target one monster your opponent controls and destroy it. So you have destruction power, but just an easy special summon of a level 1 TG monster on the field. Also, to use with some of the other ones, just controlling that TG monster, you can use it with Tank Grub, and then go into cards like Recipro Dragonfly or Formula Synchron, and the same with cards like Booster Raptor. Just remember, though, Booster Raptor is a non-tuner, so if you're going to use Booster Raptor and also Drillfish, it's best just to have the tuner option of Tank Grub as well. But just another TG monster that you can special summon out, since you'll control a TG monster depending on which one you already have on the field. I also run 3 copies of TG Striker. If your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, and during the end phase of the field, when this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 TG monster from your deck to your hand, except for Striker. So it's more search power and just an easy level 2 tuner to special summon. Most of the time when I have TG Striker on the field, I'm going to use this resource to go into our Link monster, which is TG Trident Launcher, which can then just help to set up even more of the synchro plays also. Also running 3 TG Metal Skeleton for the last of the 3-ups that we run in the deck. If a monster on the field is destroyed by battle or opponent's card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. If a TG monster you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, well, with this card, you can banish it from your field or graveyard instead. So it's more of a protection card for your other TG monsters. You can even set this card up with your Trident Launcher as another level 2 monster to run. And also with cards like TG Striker, you can use the 2 for a synchro play as a level 4 option to go into Armory Arm, so you have more of a boosted synchro on the field to get over some of your opponent's bigger monsters. And I also run 2 copies of TG Gear Zombie. You can target one TG monster you control, special summon this card from your hand, and the target monster loses 1000 attack. You can only use this effect once per turn, but still, it doesn't really matter if you lower the attack of your TG monster because you're just going to use it for either a link or a synchro play on the field anyway. And also 1 copy of TG Warwolf and 1 copy of Miscellaneousaurus. Miscellaneousaurus can be searched out with Fossil Dig, and then you can discard Miscellaneousaurus and then banish it to just special summon out Booster Raptor that much more quickly onto the field. And with TG Warwolf, when a level 4 or lower monster is special summoned, you can special summon this card from your hand, and during the end phase of the turn this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 TG monster from your deck to your hand except for Warwolf. I'm only running 1 copy of this card. It's more situational for the search power, but being a Beast Warrior monster, you could potentially search it with some of the other cards that we are running in the deck as added search power as well. For that number, if you wanted to run more copies of TG Warwolf, you could always reduce the number of your TG Gear Zombie, having you another monster just to be able to special summon out onto the field using this card along with Warwolf. But it's player preference if you wanted to go for these additional numbers, because we do have another spell in the deck that can search out Warwolf, just giving you another easy monster as a resource to get to your hand. The biggest thing just being that TG Gear Zombie is also another tuner, but the 3 of could come in handy with the addition of Tenki or Fire Formation Tenki that we're running in the deck also. And that is it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. Running 3 copies of Fossil Dig. Now you can either just search out for your TG Booster Raptor or go for the Miscellaneous Search if you haven't already searched out Miscellaneousaurus to add to your hand, to discard, to then banish and special summon Booster Raptor, thinning out the deck much more quickly doing that method. But also Fossil Dig is not a once per turn, so you could just have this additional search to get the remaining Booster Raptors that we're running in the deck also. Also running 3 copies of Fire Formation Tenki. This card was recently released off of the ban list, so back at 3 again for full power. This card searches out a Beast Warrior type monster, so it's meant to search out our TG Warwolf. That's why I also said you could run the additional copies of Warwolf to have more search copies for Tenki. You would just take out the TG Gear Zombies. I only had the 1 copy of Warwolf, sadly, to run in the deck, so you could run a full 3 of copy in this deck for that, or even reduce the number of Metal Skeleton to maybe 2 and put in additional copies of Warwolf, so you always have that search option for you to run with your Fire Formation Tenki. For some of the 1-ofs that I run for the spells, it's a good number of 1-ofs, but they all come in handy. The 1-for-1 for the many level 1 monsters like Tank Grub that we run in the deck. Call by the Grave for more graveyard shutdowns of our opponent's plays. The 1 Reinforcements of the Army, so we can search out TG Striker, all the easier, from our deck to the hand. 1 Monster Reborn, and also 1 Foolish Burial, and the 1 Bada Avarice, because you will go through monsters very quickly in this deck with just the easy search and special summon of cards like Trident Launcher. And if you need to recycle any of the extra deck monsters back into the deck for you to use, this card can definitely help with that. And then for the trap cards, I'm running 3 copies of Sonic Stun. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, negate the attack, then you can special summon 1 TG monster or 1 level 4 lower tuner from your hand or deck. So you'll just search out and special summon for the good majority of the time the many different TG monsters that we run in the deck, just giving you an additional resource and also just being able to protect some of your weaker ones on the field by negating the attack of your opponent. And then the last of the traps that we run in the deck, just 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Didn't run any Ash Blossom in the deck, just focus more on the TG monster lineup with just the small addition of the Miscellaneousaurus for the good majority of the monsters that we run in the deck. So Infinite Impermanence is just an additional card to use as a card you can set up along with your TG monsters on the field, and also being able to have that option of your other TG monsters when your opponent being able to banish a TG monster with cards like Blade Blaster can clear your field to then be able to activate Infinite Impermanence from your hand also, just that more quickly enough to set it on the field. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the X deck. For the bigger boss monsters, we're running the 1 TG Blade Blaster. With this card during either player's turn, where your opponent activates a spell or a card or a trap that targets this face-up card, you can send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard, negate the effect. And once per turn, during your opponent's turn, you can banish 1 TG monster from your graveyard to banish this face-up card on the field. This is a quick effect, and during the next standby phase, after this card was banished, special summon it. So this is the card that can just easily avoid any of your opponent's cards, going into some of the bigger plays, we also run the 1 Halberd Cannon, needing 1 Tuner Synchro and 2 or more non-Tuner Synchro monsters. It cannot be special summoned except by Synchro Summon, and once per turn while this card's face up on the field, you can negate the summon of a monster and destroy it. And when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, select 1 TG monster in your graveyard and special summon it. So this can give you a Blade Blaster back onto the field, or even our bigger go-to boss monster, which is the Shooting Star TG EX, needing 1 Tuner Synchro and 1 non-Tuner Synchro monster to summon out this card. For some of the level 5 monsters, the 2 Star Guardian. With this card, once per chain, during your opponent's main phase, you can quick effect immediately after this effect resolves. Synchro Summon using this card you control. You can only use this effect of Star Guardian once per turn. If it's Special Summon, you can target a TG monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand, giving you a monster that can just probably be easily Special Summoned back onto the field. And during your main phase, Special Summon 1 TG monster from your hand. So with this card, you can only use each of the following effects, but you can add back that TG monster and then just Special Summon it right onto the field because of it. I also run the 1 Wonder Magician for the additional Excel Synchro and the 1 Hyper Librarian. For every time you Synchro Summon, you get to draw a card. And for more of the non-tuner options, 1 Armades, 1 Armory Arm, the 2 Formula Synchrons for the draw power additionally. And then also the 1 Recipro Dragonfly as a non-tuner option. If you didn't want to run Armades, you could always run Power Gladiator as well as a TG additional level 5 non-tuner monster. And for the Link monsters, the 1 Trident Launcher, the 1 Saryuja, and the 1 Linkuriboh, since we do run a good majority of level 1 monsters in the deck for you as well. And then as for some of the go-to plays, the setup for your Synchro plays is a big part of the deck altogether. So depending on what you open up in your hand, you could use those lower level monsters to set up your Trident Launcher, which is your go-to Link monster in the deck. So with this card, with it, you can summon out your Tank Grub if you have the other TGs in your hand, like your Booster Raptor, or even your Drillfish. You have 2 special summons with these cards, and having cards like Booster Raptor, which can be searched out with your Fossil Dig, or even if you search out cards like your Warwolf, you have this card when a level 4 or lower monster is special summon, you can have this card saved in your hand. So even if you open up Fossil Dig and Tenki, you have your search for both of your cards in your hand. So let's say you open up the Tank Grub and then additionally the Fossil Dig and the Fire Formation Tenki. You can activate the Fossil Dig, and then with the deck thinning that I specified before, you could search out the Miscellaneousaurus, discarding the Miscellaneousaurus to then search out the Booster Raptor, giving you the Tank Grub and the additional Booster Raptor. If you didn't have the Tank Grub, even having cards like 1 for 1 could just be an either easy special summon of this card onto the field, or even just 1 additional TG monster. So even if you have cards like Striker you special summon, that's all you need for that play. You'll use the search off of the Miscellaneousaurus to grab the Booster Raptor, activating the Tenki in your hand to search out the Warwolf, and then since you control the Tank Grub, you can special summon the Booster Raptor, activating Warwolf since you special summoned another level 4 lower monster, and that gives you your 3 TG monsters on the field for you to then use for the Link summon, using all 3 of those monsters to summon out your TG Trident Launcher. With this card needing 2 effect monsters, including a TG tuner, if this card is Link summon. So with that, you have the Tank Grub being the tuner, so remember that. That's why the other card could be Striker as well. You can special summon 3 TG monsters, 1 from your hand, 1 from your deck, and 1 from your graveyard in defense position to zones this card points to. Also, you cannot special summon for the rest of this turn except for TG monsters. You can only use this effect of Trident once per turn, and your opponent cannot target TG monsters this card points to with card effects. So then you'll go for your special summon of your different TG monsters. The one from the graveyard could be your Warwolf. The one from the hand will just be the additional one. Let's say you have the Striker in your hand, and then whatever you need from your deck could be the last play. That could be the Screw Serpent, and they go all in defense for that special summon with this card. And then also you could activate any of the other additional effects of this card, being able to, with this card, your Screw Serpent being one of the more special summon cards on the field, to target a TG monster from your graveyard and special summon that monster, but its effects are negated. So then you could special summon back from the graveyard the Booster Raptor, using the 2 to then synchro summon out your Hyper Librarian, because then with Hyper Librarian on the field, when you go into your next synchro, using your Warwolf and your Striker to go into your Wonder Magician, or or even your Star Guardian, since they're both tuners. You could use Star Guardian, because then with that, you'll be able to special summon one TG monster from your graveyard, target it, and add it back into your hand. And with that, giving you another special summon onto the field as that additional resource as well, being that one additional monster. But if you just want to save that card in your hand, you could just use the Hyper Librarian and the Star Guardian to go into your TG Blade Blaster with that one play. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy the video. As always, I love updating the deck. Hopefully we do see some new support for TGs in the future. If we do, maybe a new Link monster would definitely be awesome as a Link 2. But until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.